Hello. Hello. Lovely. Okay. Well, everybody, I've had a bit of a rough evening. Um, my wife and I we watched this TV show where there was this kid who didn't have any friends, and a part of the episode, admittedly only a small part, but enough, was about this kid struggling to make friends. And genuinely, like, that breaks my heart. Like, if you want to know, like, I know like people have like different things that kind of really upset them. Like, I know for a lot of people it's like animal stuff. Yeah, there's all sorts. Like, people like have those things like, oh, like if it's this, then that really gets me. For me, if you want to know the thing that will actually like make me cry, it is a child who is struggling to make friends. Because that is so sad. That is just unimaginably sad in my mind. I mean, Dumbo makes me cry for all sorts of reasons, but when like he's just there with his little ears and he just wants everyone to like him, and they're just making fun of him because of his big ears. Anyway, we're gonna do the play match. Oh, I do think there was a funny thing that was pointed out by Jenny Nicholson, where she was talking about Dumbo, and she did point out that elephants are already famous for having very big ears. And to be honest, in reality, like, all of the kind of like people in Florida, like all of the Americans at the circus are making fun of Dumbo for his big ears. But like, would they even have like enough of a frame of reference to recognize like, does it really make sense for them to make fun of Dumbo for having big ears when elephants already have very big ears? I don't know. Anyway, what's the meaning behind the name of this channel? Hello, Tramp the Rabbit, and Mojo. Yeah. So the meaning behind the name of this channel is actually pretty simple. My step-second cousin, which is to say my mum's cousin's stepson, who we were very friendly with, despite that seemingly tangential relationship. He was called Nicky, I would assume short for Nicholas, and his username on Skype was Nickaroo. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool, and my name's Michael, so I could be Mickaroo. But then, when I went to actually use that name, when I was signing up for something, it was already taken. So then I chose the name Mukmickaroo, just because I thought I thought it was like a fun way of it sounding, and that's basically all it is. So really, the answer is like, where's the name come from? The fact that my name is Michael, the fact that I knew a guy who was called Nick and he had the name Nickaroo, so I got the idea of the Ikaroo part of it from that, and. Yeah, aside from that, just the Mook thing, that was pure King Critical originality right there. All right. Sorry, we should actually start listening to the video. I am so just wiped out by that poor kid who couldn't make friends. In the end, like, it's like someone kind of reached out to him and was like, "Oh, I'll be your friend." But then like there's like that's good because at least I'm not sad. But there's still like the sense of, oh my goodness, the episode of The Simpsons when Ralph gives all the other kids Valentine's Day cards and nobody gives them to him. Oh, well, anyway.
He still did wonders in the trial. Another person Bell got in contact with was Stephanie Davis-Arai.
Here Bell sat next to Stephanie Davis-Arai, who was an intervener in the case. We held hands tightly, Davis-Arai recalls.
Stephanie Davis-Arai is part of Time to Think. Stephanie is also the founder of Transgender Trend. That's one of the websites Lisa Littman used to recruit for her rapid onset gender dysphoria study.
Transgender is an ideological label, it's not a clinical term. It's distinct from the clinical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. To call a child transgender is to make both a claim that the child's feelings represent material reality and an assumption about that child's future. They will not change.
Essentially, anyone with an interest in blocking care for trans people was welcomed. And this is going to be a theme moving forwards. Even if they are religious fundamentalists or frauds or even just only financially invested. But let's look at the facts here. Kira Bell went through the system and it worked the way it was designed. She had to wait years to get hormone treatment and she was a fully grown adult when she made the decision to get breast reduction surgery. In March of 2024...
Okay, I do kind of get what's being said here. So basically saying, well, at the end of the day, this was Kira Bell's decision, and even when a system's working well, that doesn't preclude the possibility that people might still, basically slip through the cracks, and that's not the fault of the system. That's basically just the fact that no system is perfect, and you can put up whatever guardrails you're inclined to put up, but the problem is, if someone's just going to be determined to slip through them, well, there's no real way around that. That's, I think, basically the argument being made. Of course, the flip side here would be to say, well, just because the system is working perfect... I'm really bad at free kicks. Just because the system is, working the way it was supposed to and this happened, doesn't that, if anything, prove that the system is so bad that basically someone can actually fall through the cracks like this, even when it happens. I mean, for me, this is kind of why I don't obsess over the detrans issue. I prefer, and I've said this many times, I prefer to talk just in terms of, is trans identity an accurate claim about reality? And one of the reasons why that's what I prefer to talk about is because with the detransition thing, you can always get into this question of, well, how many times does the system need to fail before the system needs to be before it's a problem with the system? Because even the best systems fail. So I can kind of understand that argument of, well, just because you have this one example of someone who had all of these safeguards put up to stop her going too far and she still chose to go too far, that doesn't prove the system's inherently wrong. I think the issue I would say with that, though, is, of course, that what we believe is that anybody is too young to be consenting to this kind of thing. And therefore, if it is the case that there are some people who, are basically going through the whole thing and they're never regretting it, well, that's not necessarily a good thing either. So it's kind of actually, even if there are people who are going through the system and not having any issues, and that's the majority of people, that's not necessarily a good thing. So that's kind of just the other thing I point out there.
Or puberty blockers for adolescents in the United Kingdom were blocked. Bell's case is not the sole reason, but it was one of the first steps.
This judgment is not political. It's about the protection of vulnerable children. Please read it carefully.
Anyways, what is the deal with puberty blockers? Let's first describe what puberty blockers actually do.
What's the deal with puberty blockers? That's Jerry Seinfeld.
Before puberty, there's very little actual differences between boys and girls. That's part of why Kira Bell could be accepted as
It's not that there's
boy.
no actual difference. There's still a pretty significant difference. There's far fewer differences that are immediately obvious on a surface level. I think surface level would be a better term there than actual, because obviously there are some pretty significant actual differences between boys and girls before puberty. But yes, it is much harder to, at a glance, tell the difference between a boy and a girl prior to puberty. That would be accurate.
At least when she was a child.
Well, obviously, I don't know. Well, obviously, there are still ways to tell difference, but it's kind of gross to even be talking about that when we're talking about children, so I'm not even going to really say. You know what I'm saying? I don't really want to mention it.
It's the onset of puberty that triggers secondary sex characteristics to evolve. Puberty blockers are painfully literal. They simply act as a way to pause a person's production of either testosterone or estrogen and progesterone. Even though we say puberty blockers, their actual description is gonadotropin-releasing hormone agonist, or GnRHA for short, and they aren't just used for trans people. In fact, they're used in all cases where it might be a good idea to suppress testosterone or estrogen,
so the other examples of where it's a good idea is because you're actually getting an unnatural thing happening with your testosterone. And generally speaking, your body naturally actually wants to be pretty healthy. So if there is something that is unnatural, that's a kind of a strong indication that that thing is unhealthy. The same way that we kill cells when the cell growth is unnatural, but you wouldn't just want to kill cells for fun. It's the same issue here. If somebody's having that's the thing, as far as I know, and maybe, I'm sure he's going to give examples, but I think the main one people talk about is when people have, I believe it's called precocious puberty, essentially puberty that is too early. The problem there is that, going through puberty super early is not natural, and as such, basically what you're doing when you give someone puberty blockers is you're making it so they have a normal puberty, which is to say a normal childhood, a normal development, all that stuff. So in fact, the reason why we can give young children who are having puberty super early puberty blockers is exactly the reason why we shouldn't be giving them to young people who are having puberty at the exact right time for their natural development, because that's not going to be healthy. Usually, generally speaking, the way that your body naturally develops is going to be the healthiest experience. And of course, there's also the fact that psychologically, we would generally say having a arrested development, having something that's going to massively change your experience growing up, like still being prepubescent at the age of 16 years old, is going to be a problem. So there's actually a lot of reasons there, but we'll see. So basically, that's just to say that people having an early puberty, that's an obvious reason why you would have puberty blockers. But we'll see if he's going to mention anything else. Whatever he's going to mention, it will almost certainly be a physical issue that is solved by puberty blockers. But again, like I say, Lupron was originally used to cure cancer, or not cure, but treat cancer. And that is fine, because if it's to treat cancer, obviously that justifies using it.
In men with prostate cancer, as fertility treatments for women, as a way to reduce the risk of...
So there you go, you had it there. With men with prostate cancer, literally already addressed. And that's the thing. The fact that it was originally approved for men with prostate cancer should be a point of embarrassment for trans activists, because the fact that it was originally used for that purpose is why it has been approved despite some serious side effects, because it was used to treat, and we're talking about Lupron here specifically, I would imagine, I don't know, or maybe something else as well, but Lupron's the example I'm aware of. It was approved to treat cancer, and when I've kind of already touched on this, when something is treating a serious, potentially deadly disease, the standards for what's necessary to make it an acceptable trade-off is going to be much more lenient.
Losing eggs during chemotherapy as a way to prevent some children from entering puberty too early, and yes, as Barnes is so keen to point out, also as a way to chemically castrate male sex offenders, which sounds really scary. But
that is very scary, to be fair. Like, the fact that it is used to chemically castrate male sex offenders, that suggests that we shouldn't be. Again, like, if there was a society that decided to give people chemotherapy as a punishment for their crimes, I think we'd all recognize that's pretty horrifying. But that establishes the fact that sometimes there can be things that are in some situations medical treatments, but in other situations might be punishments. And that would make sense. That's why we're castrating male sex offenders based on that, because of the treatment. In some cases, it's a treatment that can cause a lot of damage.
It's really not. Right? Puberty blockers do not cause...
Okay, hold it. Okay, I'm really interested now. It may sound bad that this is used to castrate people, but it's really not very scary. Okay.
Changes to the body. They do the opposite. They're meant to stop the change. And if you stop taking them, your body begins producing hormones again. This is why they're called fully reversible. In the case of Kira Bell, she began...
The problem is that you can't reverse the effect of not having had your puberty for 2 years. Yeah, that's the thing. You cannot reverse the effect of having grown up from the ages of like 12 to 16, not going through the puberty that you should have been going through. It is not reversible. Maybe physically it's reversible. Again, I think with like some of the brain stuff, people are saying like there can still be long-lasting issues there. But certainly sociologically, and one would therefore imagine psychologically, it's not reversible.
Taking puberty blockers at the age of 16. So at
Charlie Charlie Kirky. I had that song in my head like all day. Charlie Charlie Kirky. I just popped a perky. Not that we endorse drugs. It is the 11th. I believe. Yeah, I have not yet opened my Galaxy Advent Calendar. So I just like shoved it in your face. So we'll just do this because it is Crimbo. It's a little picture of a Christmas present, and on the inside, they pop out with projectile force. I feel like the Galaxy ones are all the same. It's a Christmas present. It does look how 3D that looks. Crazy. Right.
At this point, she had already entered female puberty. If she changed her mind, she would just stop taking puberty blockers and her female puberty would resume. Remember, it's the hormones that have an effect on the body. So Belle's body only began to masculinize when she got gender-affirming hormone therapy, testosterone. But the argument isn't that puberty blockers don't pause hormones. It's not about the intended effects as much as it is.
How long is that guy's video taking up too much time on your channel? 5 hours. 5 hours of time. So, yeah, that's a good point. Like, some of the surgery or some of the interventions that cause a serious effect are not puberty blockers. The criticism that's made is that when you start someone off on a medical pathway, when they are very young to be consenting to that, you are very, like, essentially you are creating a situation where in the future they might feel like that's something that they want to continue with. So, yeah, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of why you can't marry children who are like, well, you can't marry children even if you promise not to consummate the marriage until later, because by marrying them, you're sort of setting them down the path that will lead to consummation, even though they are like way too young to be consenting to that. So that's basically the argument. You shouldn't even, when we're talking about people who are really emotionally immature, you should not even be setting them down a path that is likely to lead to certain things that they will, like, they're not at a position to be consenting to when you start them down that path. So puberty blockers are very likely to lead to wrong sex hormones, and we recognize that children are not emotionally mature enough to be consenting to wrong sex hormones, so we shouldn't be letting them consent to puberty blockers.
Is about the side effects. So let's get back to Time to Think to look at those arguments, shall we?
While there are studies that describe the self-reported high satisfaction of young people and their families of being on puberty blockers and some improvement in mental health, others suggest there is evidence that puberty blocker use can lead to changes in sexuality and sexual function, poor bone health, stunted height, low mood, tumor-like masses in the brain, and for those treated early enough to continue on to cross-sex hormones, almost certain infertility.
Let's wait a bit with the high satisfaction rate and look at the side effects that Barnes gives credence to first, okay? Barnes links to two sources for the change in sexuality and sexual function. The first study looks at sexual problems and dysfunctions in trans people. Ha! That's really bad. Right, Jesper? Not so fast. This study has nothing to do with puberty blockers. It investigates how great an effect no medical treatment versus hormone therapy and surgeries have on the well-being and sexual function of trans people. You see, the people in the study were already on gender-affirming hormones, so they had already taken the next step from puberty blockers. These people are in their 30s and 40s. Not teenagers or children, okay? Anyways, what did the study find? Simply, that trans people have difficulties in seeking and initiating sexual contact, and difficulty in achieving orgasm. When the participants were asked about this, some of them explained how this was due to body dysphoria. Trans women have as hard a time achieving orgasms as cis women. When they went through surgeries, problems diminished. It's almost like you feel better when you feel at home in your body. The second study investigates the intersection of pubertal timing and psychosexuality. Interesting. And once again, this is not about trans people on puberty blockers. It's actually about cis people with a gonadotropin releasing hormone deficiency, meaning people who need...
Yeah, so let me just say, I don't really care about all this stuff. Basically, I think that there are lots of other reasons to have an issue with trans ideology. And to be honest, I actually think the fact that it can reduce people's sexual function is maybe not such a bad thing when you consider what some of these blokes are like, you know? Actually, maybe we should count our blessings there. Oh, come on, this has got to be in. Every day... Oh, no. Oh, goodness me. I'm really annoyed there. That felt like it had to be in.
Help to enter puberty, but essentially need the opposite, puberty starters. Basically, this study tells us that people entering later into puberty than their peers might not be as sexual. Not in a kinky way, just in a very vanilla want to procreate with my spouse kind of way. The study raises the question when it's best to enter puberty. And even though it's not about trans people, it still allows us to ask, is it really ethical to let trans people wait so long before allowing them to enter puberty? Doesn't it ostracize them from their peers? Doesn't it maybe create the very same sexual dysfunctions we were just talking about? Okay. Next.
So yeah, I mean, for the record, that would be one of my arguments, that yeah, basically by creating this ostracization, by giving these people not a normal childhood, you are creating a serious problem. So yeah, I'm interested to hear how he's going to respond to that.
Barnes writes about tumor-like masses in the brain. And once again, the study isn't about trans people. It's not even about tumors. The study is about one cisgender girl who developed pseudotumor cerebri after the 4th dose of GnRHA. A pseudotumor is not a tumor, but instead a buildup of pressure which is more commonly known as an idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Okay, get this. This was the first time this was ever recorded in a child.
Hello, Jov. Hello, Captain Alexa. Hello, Zombie. Hello, the Real. Thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. Still, oh, hello, Ida Jacobson. Hey, nice to have you here on Twitch. Still, how does this prove they are the opposite sex? Does he think he actually won or something? Yeah, that's the issue. He's talking around so many other issues here. This isn't... And again, I don't know, see, my video about debunking trans ideology is actually one of my shorter videos. It's only 40 minutes, because I stick very specifically to the question of, is trans ideology or is trans identity an accurate claim about reality? The problem is he's not really, he's focusing on all this other stuff, a lot of which, even if he was right, it wouldn't really address the main thing. I don't know, there's lots of things that make women not be fertile, but those things don't stop them being women. So it's not really relevant to the question of are trans, so-called trans women, that there might be issues with fertility.
She's saying something, since we have been using puberty blockers for children since the 80s. They're only weakly associated with pseudotumors. Specific vitamin A treatments for acne, for example, like retinoids, are far more likely to cause pseudotumors. But we never hear about that, do we? Now we can get to the really interesting stuff. Bone mineral density and stunted height. The idea that puberty blockers weaken your bones.
Hello, Kermit the Frog.
The hypothesis, or the way that Barnes presents it, is that puberty blockers basically turn you into Samuel L. Jackson from the movie Unbreakable. Not into a black man, just that all your bones splinter and weaken, okay? Barnes links to a couple of different sources for this. They all pretty much say the same thing, and they all seem to have the same problems. So let's just look at the first one. And this one is about trans people. Finally! So this study observes 51 trans girls and 70 trans boys on puberty blockers, and 36 trans girls and 41 trans boys on hormone therapy, and takes different measurements throughout the years. Specifically, they measure their bone mineral apparent density, or BMAD, which is a fancy way of saying size and weight of bones. Then they take these measurements and compare them to the population average, accounting for age and sex. And this is called the C-score. The study found that the bone density of those on puberty blockers practically didn't change, but when they were compared with the C-scores, the population average, it worsened more and more. Okay, why do I think this is so funny? Maybe you've already picked up on it. Try to imagine what happens when you enter puberty. You grow body hair, your voice changes, you transition to adulthood. You literally
so
grow
basically,
up.
the point's going to be made here is that, well, their bones, like, actually, of course they're going to have issues with bone density. Of course they're going to be way less strong, because puberty causes you to become stronger, and, like, obviously, because they're missing out on that. But, yeah, like, that's the problem.
So, the study takes people who have grown up and compares them with people who haven't grown up. They're comparing the bones of people who have entered puberty and have grown up, and people who have had the puberty blocked. And I don't know, maybe it should be a little troubling that the people who use bone density as an argument can't wrap their head around this idea. Goddamn, wrap your heads around the pole, please.
The fact that there is no significant change in bone density should be worrying, claim other endocrinologists. Puberty is usually a time of rapid bone mass accrual. For it to stay static should be of great concern to any practitioner using this medication.
What the fuck do you expect? That they enter puberty while on puberty blockers? Are you totally daft?
Well, okay, wait. Please tell me.
It gets even dumber, okay? When these trans children and adolescents get hormones and actually enter puberty, their bone mass increases significantly. But for some weird reason, trans girls' bone mass never reaches the population average. Look, they're not only comparing the corresponding age, but also the corresponding sex. So they are comparing the bone mass of trans girls with the bone mass of cisgender men.
Okay, if that is true, and for the record, I don't care enough to look into whether or not it is true, but obviously that's an issue. Because if anything, like, as a gender critical person, we should recognize that comparing biological males to... Wait a minute. What was the argument there? I assume the argument was that, like, wait a minute, I need to go back and hear what you actually said, because I'm a bit confused now, wait.
Look, they're not only... But for some weird reason, trans girls' bone mass never reaches the population average. Look, they're not only comparing the corresponding age, but also the corresponding sex. So they are comparing the bone mass of trans girls with the bone mass of cisgender men. And to the study's credit, they do.
So that is, okay, so yeah, basically, for a minute I was thinking he was saying that, like, they have even lower bone mass density than biological females. But no, yeah, I mean, like, that doesn't surprise me, obviously. Like, estrogen leads to less bone density, and you could say whatever, that's just how it is. I guess that was offside. Yeah, fine. Like, I don't really care. Why can't he just admit that certain things about medical transition are harmful but still agree with trans ideology? Yeah, like, that would make sense. I mean, obviously in his head, I guess he still thinks it would be, like, fine if there are issues. So, yeah, I guess that's... Like, yeah, he could basically just say, oh, yeah, it's harmful, but whatever.
Pondered this fact, but only very, very briefly.
Another issue is which reference population should be used to calculate BMD or BMADC scores. In trans girls who started treatment in early puberty, bone architecture may be more similar to that of cisgender females than to cisgender males.
Oh, you think? You really think? And this study isn't doing anything out of the ordinary, by the way. Most studies compare the bone density of trans women to cisgender men. Finally, infertility. No. Puberty blockers do not make you permanently sterile. Hormone therapy probably will, though, in the long run.
Hello, Noel. That's very Christmassy.
All people who go to a doctor or clinician or psychiatrist for gender dysphoria are made aware of this. It's why gender-affirming hormones are often only available after you turn 16, and it's still very possible to preserve sperm and eggs. Trust me, we aren't helping these children by forcing their hand. Okay, so now I think it's time to look at whether puberty blockers actually help trans people.
Many studies claim to show the benefits of puberty blockers to mental health, but these have all been heavily critiqued and shown to have significant methodological flaws.
Oh, really, Hannah? Have they really all been shown to be flawed? Barnes links to 2 studies that show improvement to mental health, which she then shoots down with 3 critiques. But I don't really care about those 2 studies, so let's just look at the 3 critiques. And those are one by Jesse Single, one by 770 KTTH Conservative Radio, and one by Michael Biggs. And sure, the first one, Single's article, is it's so boring that you can just have that one, okay? I don't care about the 2 studies. The next critique from 770 KTTH Conservative Talk Radio is literally a commentary on this article from Single. So Barnes just reuses the same arguments from a commentary on a commentary. And finally, the last person, Michael Biggs, is someone who I find really funny. Biggs is a professor in sociology at the University of Oxford with the PhD from Harvard. Well, in 2018, some reporters at Oxford investigated him and found that he had a Twitter account under the pseudonym Mr. Henry Wimbush. And there he could freely speak his truth. He posted on average 37 times a day about trans people in a span of 7 months. And that's 6,700 tweets. Even though I think he's a total freak, his article is, again, it's fine. What these 3 critiques is saying is basically that there is no difference in the mental health of trans adolescents on puberty blockers and those not on puberty blockers. And like, okay, but let me just set it straight. These are not the only studies that have ever been conducted. Senia Jones from Gender Analysis, for example, links to 8 studies that all show mental health benefits for trans adolescents when they medically transition. Though the most important thing that these people always call on is a control group. Otherwise, you might argue that even though a lot of studies do show improvements to mental health, it ultimately doesn't matter because maybe over the years that would have happened if they got on the blocker or not.
The gold standard version of such an experimental setup would be to find 100 people with the flu and then divide them randomly into 2 groups of 50, each of them equally sick on average. You treat them identically with the clinic visit, symptom measurement and so on, with the only exception being half of them get the actual treatment and half of them get a sugar pill or some other sham treatment we wouldn't expect to have any impact on the flu.
Okay,
Right.
but we're not talking about flu symptoms here. Puberty blocker.
Penalty shootout. Only a commentary on a commentary. I wonder what you're doing. Well, what am I doing? I'm doing a commentary on a commentary on a commentary on a commentary.
Are not in the same category as pain medication, nicotine gum, or SSRIs. It's not a matter of feelings, it's a matter of the unstoppable train of aging. You either get the blocker and don't enter puberty, or you don't get the blocker and enter puberty. It's much more like a contraceptive, for example. So, if I should give you an example, what would a control group look like? It would be like taking 100 women, where 50 of them are taking the contraceptive pill and 50 of them are receiving a placebo. And then every day for 2 years, they're inseminated with the sperm of Elon Musk. And whoopsie, irreversible changes that not a single person would appreciate happen to them. Oh, they feel bad. No, good thing we had the control group to figure that out. Okay, otherwise we couldn't have known. Who could have known you didn't want to have much child? And if you did it with puberty blockers, some people would go through puberty and others wouldn't. Wonder if it might cause some trauma if people had to gamble on the body turning against them. And then, what? Do we want them to continue taking the placebo when they actually enter puberty? Like, how stupid can you be? The thing is, puberty blockers are not meant to treat the...
I should stop listening to this because I'm fully locked in on these penalties. Ah, bastard. Okay. This is it. I need to get this in, otherwise I've lost. Okay, good. Now I need to save theirs. Oh, look at how intense he is. He's like, oh no. See, I genuinely haven't saved a single one. I'm just going to go straight down the middle. Straight down the middle. I'm locking in. Let's see. Straight down the middle. Cooling it. That's what he's going to do. Straight down the middle. Slight to the left. Nope. Never mind then. Okay. Sudden death. Goodness me. Oh. It's ridiculous that, like, all of these goals have gone in. Like, how bad are these keepers? Okay, this is it. This is the moment. I don't know, like, should I just go straight down the middle? Like, at some point, I don't think he's gone straight down the middle a single time. There we go, got it. Okay, whatever, they gave it to me. Alright, we can jump in. It costs a lot to save eggs and sperm. Not everyone can afford that. Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. I don't know whether or not the NHS agrees to do it for you for free. I'm not sure.
Depression. They aren't meant to treat self-harm, trauma, having friends, a dysfunctional family, or a government that wants to eliminate your existence. They just treat puberty. Mental health outcomes are also just a side effect. I honestly don't care if they make trans children feel better or not, because that's not their function. And it has been shown again and again.
Wait a minute. What do you mean? So, what do you mean? You're saying that the point of, like, all of this stuff, which has all of these effects, you're saying it doesn't even achieve the one thing you would think it obviously should achieve, of, like, actually making them feel better. You're saying you don't even care about that. What on earth are you saying? That's ridiculous. I need to get some chamomile tea, so give me a moment. I could try and play the video while I'm gone, but I feel like if I did that, he would probably say, like, the second I was out of the room, probably say something interesting. So I should have left you to watch the highlights. I apologize. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
That while puberty blockers might not help, gender-affirming hormones absolutely, irrefutably do help. So if you want these children to be happy, let them go through a normal puberty.
He said irrefutably do help, but the problem is he hasn't yet addressed the absence of double-blind trials. The problem is, and this is why I say science is moot on this issue, because the question is about whether we as a society should be changing our attitude towards gender. Should we as a society be making it so it's clear to everyone that you can be a feminine man and that's fine, blah, blah, blah. If we address those issues, then maybe things would be better. That's the problem. We're talking about like how should society be organized here, not how should like doctors treat kids. Let's see. Let's see. I should probably purchase someone else from the transfer thing. I'm going to praise my team because I think they're doing pretty good. Alright, so can I actually... I don't really know how the transfer window works. Can I do a transfer? I think I need a center attack. I do need a center attacking mid. I was just thinking I need a center attacking mid. Get him. Sergio Garcia. Okay, wait. So I need to scout him further to find out information. Could you skip the video and play the game, please? Yeah, I need to get through the video. I'm really sorry. Video is pretty... I mean, the game is pretty fun, though.
With the help of gender-affirming hormones. I don't like that children have to get double mastectomies, getting their breasts removed.
Oh my... It's such a weird thing to say. I don't like that children have to get double mastectomies. I don't like that. And I guess his argument's going to be, that's why they should have to do... Wait, what is he saying? Children don't... Oh my goodness me. Let me hear what he's about to say. Like, there's no way this makes sense.
And if you don't like it either, you should also just support puberty blockers. It really is that simple. I'm 100% for puberty blockers for children at whatever age they need them. It's idiotic to only allow them for adults where they already have gone through puberty. Kira...
Well, again, I would assume when they're used for adults, they're used for people who are actually, like, you know, need them for some kind of medical reason, not related to stopping puberty. But, yeah, I don't know, yeah, that whole thing about, like, oh, I don't like how children have to get double mastectomies. They don't. Okay, this guy wanted to start the game, so he's on the sub bench. His name's Ben Hurst. Let's bring him on, just because he clearly wanted to. Where is... Oh, wait. Oh, I see he's not on the sub bench. Okay. Oh, it's my striker. Did he score? If he scored, then absolutely he can come on. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Girl would never have to have her breast removed if she started transitioning before she went through puberty. When she then inevitably detransitioned, she would just have gone through a second female puberty. Another argument Hannah Barnes makes is that puberty blockers might somehow make children trans.
98% of them who started puberty blockers went on to cross-sex hormones. So you set something in train that, although it's talked about as being a pause for thought or being reversible in the first stage, you know, it clearly isn't.
She cites a study where 98% of all children who are administered puberty blockers also go on to hormone replacement therapy. And this, she says, is totally unheard of. That's just way too many for it to be real. But how isn't this a good thing? How can these people go on and on about these children might not be trans when they're shown at every turn that, yes, these children are very aware of what they want?
Yeah, like this is the argument, right? And the reality is that we don't know. Like, it could be the case that the fact that all the kids who go on puberty blockers, or the vast majority of them then go on to be trans, shows that only kids who would have gone on to be identifying as trans anyway are being recommended puberty blockers. Or it could be the case that it is the recommendation of puberty blockers that is causing so many kids to be trans. You would have to make an argument for it being the former as opposed to the latter, because if it is the latter, and by prescribing children puberty blockers, we are increasing the number that go on to be fully transed out, that's an issue.
And what they need. Would the study only be successful if 50% of children stopped transitioning we wouldn't hear them complaining about fast-tracking or transing them then. What do they want more people to change their mind? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, the issue is obviously it's bad if more people change their mind, but at the same time, if this is supposed to be like a temporary thing where it's like, oh, they take it and they see how they're feeling and blah, 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 you would expect some of them would change their mind. So, yeah, that's the suspicion.
Well, that's exactly what they want, actually. And that's exactly what they believe is going to happen.
Chapter 9. Desistance. Part 1.
Every single one of these arguments relies on the idea that most or all those who transition will later come to regret it. If they don't regret it...
No, not necessarily. Again, I mean, they might not regret, and it would still be the case that it's nonsense. Because, yeah, plenty of people believe bad ideas and then don't go on to regret those bad ideas.
They continue living happily. The concerns of courses, surgeries, puberty blockers, side effects, you name it. Well, the concerns shift to being about ethical trans healthcare. And, let's be real. That's not what these people care about. No.
No, so, yeah, just for the record, again, the main argument here is, can a biological male be a woman? Like, this guy does not understand that you could actually be full-on, entirely supportive of biological males changing their signifiers of their biological sex, biological females doing the same. You could be totally on board with that and still not think that biological males can be women. Because, yeah, one of them's like a belief about what you should do, the other one's a belief about reality. So, yeah, basically, it's a totally separate issue. With that said, no, if it was shown that people are like living their best lives as, you know, presenting as trans, if you like, that wouldn't create any sort of issues.
They're scared that the hardships that trans people face are, in actuality, happening to cis people who have somehow been tricked into being trans.
No, that's not it. That's not a distinction we believe in. You're just being stupid. And yeah, the issue is, it's not like, oh no, we only really care about the cis, because we don't believe that the cis is like a distinction that actually exists.
Well, have they? Are people being tricked? If they are being tricked, we should expect to see a rapid acceleration in people who retransition. That's what's usually referred to as
No, that's not true. In fact, if anything, you could say that people who authentically come to decisions are more likely to then feel that they're free to change their mind on that. Whereas people who think they're tricked, I mean, we literally have something called the sunk cost fallacy. People who believe they've been tricked are much more likely to actually persist and say, oh no, I don't want to believe that I was tricked. And like they'll try and convince themselves actually it was legitimate. This isn't like always going to be the case, but certainly just a genuine facet of psychology that people who've been tricked into things might become the most sincere believers. Oh, this is in. Okay, no it's not.
Transition or desistance rates. And look, I don't get it. Look at it like this. If you're cis, but think that you're trans and you transition and you're happy and satisfied, then you're trans. Who are we?
Okay, that's not how it works though, because we wouldn't say that if you know, like, are anorexic and you stop eating and then you feel happy that you are in fact, like, you were in fact too fat beforehand. And yeah, the other issue here is that we're talking about a belief about reality when we talk about being trans. And, you know, if you go through your whole life believing in Scientology, that doesn't mean Scientology is true. So yeah, there's just lots of issues there.
To decide if you're cis or trans or a man or a woman or neither. This idea that you have to be one thing and be that one thing all the time and never be dissatisfied or unsure or unhappy and never get a redo or a say in the matter, it's just, it's kind of stupid to me. Barnes lists 3 sources for the high desistance rates. One, which is the NHS Standard Contract for Gender Identity Development Service for Children and Adolescents. 2, the DSM-5 or DSM-V, and 3, a critique of methodological flaws. Apparently the whole desistance model is filled with them. And this one's by someone named Kenneth Zucker. Probably not an important guy, whatever. And I can hear what you're thinking, but the NHS and the DSM, those are legitimate. Of course they are. Don't worry, we're so close to being done, and don't look at the video progress bar, please. Are these videos filled with...
I mean, look, I desperately do want to look at the video progress bar, because, yeah, the only thing that's, like, kind of this has got going for me is I do feel like I'll get a heck of a lot of watch time out of this when this goes up on the main channel. It's like, hey, everyone, I reacted to that 5-hour trans debunk video, and that's what I need for Christmas. Like, look, my wife getting a present is contingent on everyone watching this video when it gets uploaded.
An hour of patron names at the end anyways. First, the NHS. And they don't make the numbers up, luckily.
In follow-up studies of prepubertal children, mainly boys who were referred to clinics for assessment of gender dysphoria...
For fuck's sake. Why? It feels like bloody scripted. Every single time I go 1-0 up, there's a lucky corner cross, headshot in. Headbutt in. It just, like, it's happened twice now. I don't get it. I'm pretty sure it happened last time too.
Dysphoria persisted into adulthood for only 6 to 23% of children. Boys in these studies were more likely to identify as gay in adulthood than as transgender. Newer studies, also including girls, showed a 12 to 27% persistence rate of gender dysphoria into adulthood.
Huh. It's that sucker guy again. The DSM-5 book is expensive. So instead of linking directly to that, Barnes just scrolls a bit further down the page where it reads,
according to the DSM-5, rates of GD continuing into adolescence or adulthood vary. In assigned males, this has ranged from 2 to 30%. In assigned females, this has ranged from 12 to 50%. It's clear that, for the majority of gender-confused boys and girls, gender dysphoria persists over time as they enter adolescence.
Sucker again. Huh. Alright, well, compared to Barnes, I did find the DSM-V, or the 5th edition she refers to, and let's see where they get those sources, shall we?
Rates of persistence of gender dysphoria from childhood into adolescence or adulthood vary. In natal males, persistence has ranged from 2.2 to 30%. In natal females, persistence has ranged from 12 to 50%.
There aren't any sources. However,
extant follow-up samples consisted of children.
Okay, they had 2 shots on target. Still, look at that. 7 shots, 7 on target. 100% shot accuracy, 1 goal. Stupid game.
Children receiving no formal therapeutic intervention or receiving therapeutic interventions of various types, ranging from active efforts to reduce gender dysphoria to a more neutral, watchful waiting approach.
Oh man, I'm really looking forward to getting to know these active efforts more intimately. And would you look at that? Zucker on the DSM-5 task force. He's practically the one who wrote the whole section on GD. Who is this guy? He's from Toronto. Maybe he knows the only other psychologist, Jordan P.
You may have been told this, but perhaps you weren't. So there are good long-term studies of children with gender dysphoria. Most of them were conducted in Toronto, where I happen to be, by a man named Ken Zucker. And Zucker ran a clinic for gender dysphoric kids way before this became part of the culture war, let's say. And he was a very straight and honest scientist, a very good researcher, not a political person. And what he showed was, what his clinic showed, many peer-reviewed studies, was that gender dysphoria of the type that you described is relatively rare, but if you leave kids alone till they're 19 or 18, 80 to 90% of them settle into their biological identity.
If you leave them alone? Peterson, we'll see about that, bucko.
But if you just back the hell...
So I'm pretty sure this is the study where basically the issue of the study is that they conflate being in any way gender non-conforming with being trans. And yeah, obviously that's nonsense. I don't really care. Like, again, this whole thing is not really important to the overall topic.
Off and waited those kids would settle into their body, but generally I'd adopt a homosexual orientation. And so that was, as far as I could tell, that was the best research. Now, Zucker got slaughtered for this.
And he was slaughtered for this. When it all turned political, all he said was back the hell off.
His guideline medically was, don't do any harm, right? Back the hell off.
God, all he wanted was for people to leave
Okay,
the
so
children alone, and it was...
That's not being political. That's the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm, but yeah, whatever. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, good.
Slaughtered for this when it all turned political. Let me just take a look at his wiki. Life, boring. Therapeutic intervention, boring. There it is. Closure of the CAMH Gender Identity Clinic for Children.
In January 2015, Zucker was the psychologist-in-chief at Toronto Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, and head of its Gender Identity Service. Rainbow Health Ontario submitted a review of academic literature and clinical practices for transgender youth and expressed concern that the Gender Identity Clinic was not following accepted practices.
Jordan Peterson jump scare. Well, I've got a bit of a cold, so I can't do any kind of funny voice. I can do Charlie Charlie Kirky. I can do that. That's a classic. I'm really good at that. Charlie Charlie Kirky.
Linked the Gender Identity Clinic's practices to suicide of transgender youth caused by conversion therapy and referenced the high-profile case of Leela Alcorn, a transgender teen from Ohio. Chapter 10. Kenneth Zucker. Hello guys! I got some feedback that people wanted audible content warnings. So from here on out, expect things to get worse. Content warnings for major child abuse, conversion therapy, suicide, sexual abuse and pedophilia, which spans pretty much the rest of the video. So if you do not want to subject yourself to that, you have my full respect, and that's okay. If my channel ever gets monetized, that would be pretty epic. Yippee! Anyway,
So yeah, I can't, like, how big was this guy's channel? Because he's talking about like having a Patreon. He just said there he's got like feedback, but then he's also saying like his channel isn't monetized, and like it doesn't take much to get your channel monetized. So, but I don't know whether or not he's like talking about like because he's so controversial, man.
take it away, Jasper.
Kenneth J. Zucker is probably the most prominent researcher on gender identity. Man, wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where that was a good thing? Not only has he practically defined how the world views trans people through his place as head of the Committee on Sexual and Gender Identity Disorders in the DSM-5, but Zucker also helped write the DSM-4 and the DSM-3R.
Dr. Kenneth Zucker is one of the world's foremost child psychologists, specializing in gender dysphoria.
He's been in the forefront of the mainstream sentiment on trans people for the last 50 years. Because he has also overseen which studies and research has been published on trans people. Kenneth Zucker is the editor-in-chief of the academic journal Archives of Sexual Behavior.
Oh, he got injured.
His stamp of approval is one of the reasons we still talk about ROGD and autogynephilia, and, well, honestly, why the trans debate is even a thing. You see, Kenneth Zucker wants to eliminate trans people. Not kill them, but if he can convert them to being cisgender, that'll make him happy and comfortable. His viewpoint of valuing cis people higher than trans people, his power as editor-in-chief of a large academic journal, and his influence on the very definition of what it means to be trans has resulted in Kenneth Zucker being dubbed public enemy number 1 to transgenders, at least according to this piece from 2009. So now I think it's time to, well, go back in time. I think we should start with Zucker's magnum opus, Gender Identity Disorders in Children and Adolescents, which he wrote in 1995 with the help of Susan Bradley. This was the main piece of evidence for the 6% persistence rates from the NHS. Michael Bailey, the guy who was really horny earlier, described it as
Surely the most comprehensive text ever written on this topic.
Now, the book is so niche that it's practically impossible to get a hold of, but I did find some snippets on Google. The book starts with some case examples of Zucker's patients.
Clinical assessments reveal that some of these boys prefer to sit to urinate, which seems to fuel a fantasy that they have female genitalia. A sixth was persistent in claiming that she had male genitalia. If hit in the stomach with a hockey puck, she would clutch herself and exclaim, "Oh, my balls!"
Maybe that's funny.
During a Rorschach ink blood test, one child exclaimed, "Know what? It's a dick. It's not a nice thing to say, it's sort of rude. It's okay if you say dick, but not if you say it like this. Dick."
Also pretty funny. The others are not, and I'll spare you. For now. Zucker and Susan Bradley then go on to discuss whether or not gender identity disorder is a mental illness. They had also noticed some of the protests from the anti-GID folk at the time. But Zucker and Bradley were pretty adamant that, nah, these children are sick in the head. Anyways, let's see what else we can find in the book, shall we?
As noted in chapters 2 and 6, boys with gender identity disorder are often highly avoidant of rough and tumble activity. In contrast, girls with gender identity disorder are often oriented towards sports and rough and tumble activity. Other specific factors within the boys may be that they are unusually attractive.
That came out of nowhere! Oh my goodness me. Oh my goodness me, I got too excited. Oh, look at that. Just lost it. I mean, like, I didn't deserve that. Like, I thought that was a foul. Like, every day, like, in my head, like, every day of the week, that's a foul, but whatever, fine. Like, go in, studs flying. He, like, I guess so, it's like, do I get the ball? Okay, I get the ball. Okay, that's why it's not a foul. So, I get the ball. It's not a foul. He gets the ball back, kicks it into my leg, trips himself over. It goes to this guy, and, like, just, I guess, like, nutmegs him. I mean, like, the keeper was never saving that. That was just out of nowhere, but oh my goodness me. That was crazy. Yes. Okay, I'm going to go down as one of the great managers of FIFA. Okay, but there's still room for them to score, so let's calm down. In fact, let's be conservationists. I don't usually like to do that, but we're going to park the bus. I don't care.
What? Unusually attractive? Huh. And citations to back it up? Okay, now clip 2 foreshadowing let's skip to the fun part. Treatment.
Wait, so is this like some kind of pedo thing? I don't know. Like, I'm always like, whenever people like kind of get into like, I mean, like in general, I don't know, like scientists with kids, it's a bad combination. Oh my goodness, watch me like actually lose. Oh my goodness, that was so close. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Like, personally, I mean, I've said this before, like all of these like doctors, you kind of got to be a bit of a psychopath to be a doctor. And I'm not like saying that to be mean. I'm just saying like you are like comfortable cutting people open, which is a bit much. So, and then like on top of that, there's the fact you kind of got to deal with people who are like telling you that they're afraid of dying and just be like, sounds like you're making it up to me. Sounds like you're faking it. You know. And I know it's like different types of doctors. There's like surgeons and GPs, but yeah.
Behavior therapists were criticized for their treatment of cross-gender identified boys, which often consisted of extinguishing or punishing specific feminine behaviors, such as playing with Barbie dolls, and rewarding or encouraging specific masculine behaviors, such as playing with dart guns.
Okay. Are they gamified?
Don't they like talk about? I forget who this is, but isn't there like a guy who like basically came up with the whole concept of you can't just observe something without interfering with it? And this sounds very much like, I mean, in this case, it doesn't even sound like they were trying to observe it without interfering with it. Okay, oh, that was a really good. See that, like, I felt really unlucky for missing that, to be honest. Like that whole situation there, but yeah. And That goal. That was a good goal. I kind of like... And then this was nonsense. I just found a head out of nowhere. Anyway, whatever.
Gender! How fun! Anyways, it's never been trans people who thought that if boys played with dolls...
Oh my goodness, look at that difference. I had 10 more shots on target than them.
They were actually girls. No, the gender essentialism was literally written into how cis people define what it means to be trans.
A 4-year-old boy was fitted with a wrist counter and told to press it.
Yeah, the problem is, like, again, you're arguing against like two different groups of people. Because Helen Joyce, for example, who you've already mentioned, she would not agree with this. Like, this thing of, like, people saying, like, basically being pro gender essentialism, that's not a thing for the gender critical side. But yeah, there will be some, I mean, like, there are literally some conservatives who will say that their goal with opposing trans ideology, or sorry, with opposing trans ideology, is that they want boys to be taught to act like boys, girls to be taught to act like girls, and yeah, obviously that's a very different situation. Bad news, James Barrett has suffered a pulled hamstring and will be out for about 3 weeks. We'll do what we had again back in training. Is he even a good player? I think I actually desperately need a... Okay. The media have gathered in the press room. Oh, fucking attend the thing. Okay. I'm going to badmouth Cambridge University. I'm going to unnerve them. There we go. Cool. Let's see. Hey, Gaffer. I really appreciate you listening to me. Let me out of here. Okay, I need the Spanish guy because I have a serious lack of midfielders. So, let's find him. So, Sergio Garcia. Hello, Sergio Garcia. 7 days. Okay, whatever. I think we'll just give up. Squad. Alright. So, okay, my center attacking mid. I mean, to be fair, it's pretty fortuitous that I am scouting a new center attacking mid. But not fortuitous that my team is in a lot of pain. I think I'm just going to have a game... Okay, wait. We'll just bring on our shit squad. There's just nothing else to be done for it. I can do a center mid. Oh, okay, I've got this center attacking mid who's not very good, but... We'll just go with that. Alright.
Only when playing with boys' toys. This behavior was initially facilitated by behavioral cueing, in which the boy wore a bug-in-the-ear device and was told when to press the counter. An overall examination of the above-cited case reports, particularly those by Rikas and his group, suggest that behavior therapy do have some immediate effects on the sex-type behavior of cross-gender identified children.
And there we have it. At this point in time, Soccer supports conversion therapy for trans people. Get to them young, when they're gullible and malleable and naive. That's when conversion... Sorry. I mean reparative... Sorry, I mean exploratory therapy is most effective, according to Soccer. Okay, I hear you thinking, but... Trans
Again,
people don't
just for
have...
the record, I don't care if you call it conversion therapy. Like, we can call it exploratory therapy, we can call it conversion therapy. I mean, it is exploratory, because conversion therapy is exploratory. But yeah, like, this whole, like, thing of it being, like, this, oh, look, he's saying exploratory, and really he means conversion therapy. It's just not as big of a deal as this guy thinks.
Have it easy. Isn't a little conversion good if they can avoid the pain? So you're asking why conversion therapy is bad? Seriously? That's your question I wrote for you? Well, let me put it in this...
Okay. I would like to know why conversion therapy is bad. Can you tell me why conversion therapy is bad? Please. I need to know. If this feeling goes both ways, it's hard to see you go. We're sort of hoping that you'd stay. Baby, we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you. That if I had a few, and you know it's true. I need to have fewer, what's the word? Fewer, like, defenders. I need to get, in fact, I think I need all my centre mids on there, so, left back, you're gone. No, okay, let's get rid of, should I get rid of this? Let's go to the goalkeeper. I don't think I need a goalkeeper. Actually, should we have the bad goalkeeper on? You know what? Let's bring on the bad goalkeeper. This will be... We're very much just hoping that things work out. Bye, Saskatchewan. And thank you for wishing me fun.
Disgusting light. It doesn't work, and it costs a whole lot of money. Actually, let me just read it out for you.
Among 28 published studies, which included 190,000.
By the way, saying the problem with conversion therapy is that it doesn't work is almost implying in so many words that, like, it would be good if it did work, right? Like, that's just, like, if the main criticism of it is that it doesn't work, surely that would make it harmless rather than there being something wrong with it. I don't know, maybe I'm making too much sense there, but yeah, that doesn't sound... Oh, this is stupid, I give up. Anyway, you know what, I was supposed to be pressing the L, I bet, so I was chipping, but I didn't, so who cares? Oh, it's raining again. It's another day in England. Cambridge United, is that a good team? I don't know.
695 LGBTQ individuals, 12% of youths experienced SOGICE, sexual orientation and gender identity change efforts. Relative to LGBTQ individuals who did not undergo SOGICE, recipients experienced serious psychological distress, depression, substance abuse and attempted suicide. In the economic analysis, over a lifetime horizon with a 3% annual discount rate, the base case model estimated additional $97,985 lifetime.
The problem with this is that you're not proving that conversion therapy is bad. You're proving that conversion therapy has happened and is bad. You know, like that's a problem. Like you could show like, oh, imprisonment is bad and we should never imprison anyone because you're showing that some people have been wrongly imprisoned or whatever. Like, I mean, for the record, my argument, I don't think that anyone should really get conversion therapy, except for in that I think conversion therapy isn't really a well-defined thing. And as such, what I really think is, one, people should have the free choice to choose what kind of, like, medicine they want for themselves. I don't think it's my right to tell someone that they're not allowed to have, you know, conversion therapy. Like if they're gay and they don't want to be gay, I guess they can choose to get some kind of therapy that they think will stop them being gay. But the other thing is that I think that actually any therapy could cause someone to change some aspects of their sexuality because, you know, like they're not even doing a therapy specific to sexual, like they're just like looking at their anxiety and then they find out, oh wait, turns out I wasn't asexual. It was, or like depression, for example. Like they think they're asexual, but it turns out they just had depression. That's something worth like looking into. So that's my other issue. Like a lot of the time with conversion therapy that changes your preference in this stuff isn't necessarily isn't even necessarily even trying to do that. So yeah, for me, like the issue is when you like are trying to define it, you're just creating you're opening a whole barrel of worms. And my question would be, regarding that stuff which has been shown to be harmful, what about it was shown to be harmful? And is that necessary for conversion therapy? And what kind of conversion therapy is necessary? What about it made it conversion therapy that's harmful? Because again, technically any therapy is conversion therapy, because if someone gets therapy and then they decide based on that, like let's say someone gets treated for narcissistic personality disorder and they decide, oh, it turns out I wasn't bisexual, I just wanted attention. Well, then was that conversion therapy? You know?
Cost per individual, with SOGICE associated with 1.61 QLAYs, quality adjusted life years lost versus no intervention. Affirmative therapy yielded cost savings of $40,329 with 0.93 QLAYs gained versus no intervention. With an estimated...
This sounds really weird to be like quantifying like the value of someone's life. I don't know, like whatever. I mean, maybe it's like based on real science, but it just sounds a bit weird to me.
508,892 youths at risk for SOGICE in 2021. The total annual cost of SOGICE is estimated at $650 million, with associated harms totaling an economic burden of $9.23 billion.
Now, you might argue that homosexual conversion therapy and gender conversion therapy aren't the same or aren't in the same...
That's a whole other thing, which I wouldn't even... that's another aspect of it as well. There's multiple senses in which what you're arguing is basically nonsense. Stupid of me. Oh, but I managed to get away with it. Oh, was that a penalty? Oh, yes.
League. That's at least what someone like Anna Hutchinson thinks.
Let's get real. Conversion and aversion practices were once practiced by therapists in the NHS. We've seen...
You almost had that goal. Yeah, thank you, Igor. I feel like I've had a lot of near misses in a way to my shame. Like sometimes when I have a lot of near misses, I'll think to myself like, oh, this makes me feel vindicated. Like actually, in principle, I'm pretty good. But I think, well, in a way, actually, maybe this just speaks to how bad I am. I keep getting so close and then failing at the last hurdle.
Sex-attracted adults. These practices were often punishing and included horrors such as electric shock treatment.
This is the problem, right? I can believe that giving someone electric shock treatment would harm them. That should be illegal. The problem is that that stuff's already illegal. This is the problem with the gay conversion therapy ban, is that all the bad things people point to are already illegal. It's already illegal to kidnap someone without their consent. It's already illegal to torture someone, to deny someone food, all this stuff. So, and by the way, I'm assuming his study about conversion therapy was probably with reference to the United States, considering he was talking about dollars. I understand that can just generally be a kind of universal frame of reference, but if it was based on the United States, obviously the United States has this massive evangelical community. There's going to be, and fundamentalist community. So there's going to be all sorts of different stuff going on there that just is not going to happen in the UK because we have a very different culture.
And induced vomiting. There is no evidence that this is happening today, and certainly not with children, because that would be illegal. But it did happen, okay. And in my...
So you're making the... Okay, you're saying this... So is this a pro-trans... Oh, sorry, an anti-trans person making this point? Because it's a point I would agree with. There's no evidence this is happening today, because all that stuff is already illegal, yes.
Opinion, we mustn't minimise the suffering of this previous generation of gay adults by appropriating their experiences and misapplying them to a new generation of gender-questioning children.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And
absolutely,
wrong.
I agree with what she's saying.
Again, Hutchinson. She argues...
Why is it... What's wrong? What's wrong? What's the wrong? I want to know what the wrong is. Okay, I'm ready for this.
That real conversion therapy is electroshock and hypnotism and vomiting. And these are all things that have been used on trans people as well. History has shown that conversion therapy is rarely about sexuality. It's usually about eliminating effeminate behavior. I'm not sure Zucker really thinks that it's two different things.
I don't know what you're talking about here, but I would say the most important thing she said is that this isn't really a thing that's happening anymore.
Even though he claims that the prevention of homosexuality has never been a goal in his research, it's mainly because of the lack of empirical evidence. So, on one hand, yes, maybe Zucker is very picky about his conversion therapy, but on the other hand, he did also publish a funny little 363-page book on ex-gay research. And, it's fine to investigate the idea of fluid sexuality. The problem is that it will most definitely be used to counter gay acceptance, as the very idea of wanting to be hetero is, by definition, anti-gay. In the first chapter of the...
Okay, whatever. Either way, the argument now was, well, he's done a study on this thing, and a study might be used to counter anti-gay acceptance, but that's an appeal to consequence. Just because you can't police certain thought because it could be used to advance ideas you don't like. Unless there's a problem with the thought itself, then you can say that you disagree with it. But you're claiming, your stated issue of it is that it could be used by sinister people. That's not a good argument against a study.
The book Ex-Gay Research, Zucker mentions that
for any readers interested in learning about the intellectual and ideological positions of NARTH, National Association of Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, A subscription to the Nath Bulletin is worth the few dollars it costs.
Nath, now going by the name Alliance for Therapy.
Isn't Narf what Pinky says in Pinky and the Brain? Narf! So, that's just like a thing to consider, is all I would say. Maybe just kind of bear that in mind when you're going to call your organization, like, what do we... I don't think I can do either of the Pinky and the Brain voices. He's like, what? I feel like I should be able to. What? I don't know, he sounds like Orson Welles, right? Or he sounds like that fake Orson Welles that is always in every single Simpsons, and I think he knows Matt Groening or something, and he was like, yeah, you can do my Orson Welles, even though it doesn't really sound like Orson Welles, but it's kind of like everything is tragic. What are we going to do? But then it's deeper as well. What are we gonna do? Okay, whatever. Narf. He says Narf. That's all that matters.
Therapeutic choice and scientific integrity. Wow, if you don't know, it's kind of the leading organization in the pseudo-scientific research of conversion therapy for homosexuality. And while Zucker doesn't directly condone Nath doesn't play fast and loose with conversion therapy. They just like all of it, and they really like Zucker. Nath wrote a letter on his research in 2007.
And in support of parents' rights to avert a homosexual outcome for their children, Zucker cites a persuasive quote from Richard Green. The right of the parents to oversee the development of children is a long-established principle. Who is to dictate that parents may not try to raise their children in a manner that maximizes the possibility of a heterosexual outcome? If that prerogative is denied, should parents also be denied the right to raise their children as atheists or as priests?
So in 1995, when this book was published, Zucker was at least comfortable with the idea of conversion therapy for homosexuality. If there just was evidence to show it worked.
There is now widespread recognition, at least among mental health professionals.
Yeah, so basically this is all just a big guilt by association, whatever. I don't think the guilt by association is especially strong. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that there would be a link between someone who says, well, people should have the right to do whatever kind of conversion, basically people should have the right to seek whatever therapy they feel like they personally need, and someone who's, basically saying that a lot of the gender conversion stuff is, a lot of the gay conversion stuff is unnecessary as a concern because it's just not happening in the UK, which, by the way, this guy has not addressed. I didn't miss it, right? One of the main arguments that woman made was that, yeah, there used to be this electroshock therapy, beating, force vomiting, all this stuff is basically torture, but then she said the thing is none of this stuff is happening today, and that was her main point. And this guy said wrong, but he's not shown that it's wrong. And that's a really important point. But yeah, the thing is, there's lots of different levels here. And then there are the people who say, no, we should have a gay conversion therapy ban, but we shouldn't have one for gender identity because gender identity is very different. I mean, and then never mind the people who would say, well, yeah, we can have a homosexual and lesbian conversion therapy ban, but what about asexuality? Because asexuality actually could be caused by mental health issues. So there's lots of levels to this, and it's not surprising to me that the people who support full-on, extreme, torturous conversion therapy would be happy with the fact there exist people like me who would point out that actually, there are lots of issues with this whole conversation of conversion therapy bans. It's all very simplistic, and there's so many things that are being overlooked. But I'm right. I don't care whether or not. And again, it's just very weird because it's well, there's things that there's things I believe that just full on Nazis are down with. Oh, that's so annoying. I knew that was going to be offside. How offside was that? It was pretty offside. Oh, sorry.
That homosexuality is not inherently related to general psychopathology or mental disorders. However, the treatment of cross-gender identified children for the purpose of preventing homosexuality has been justified on other grounds, including parental taste and parental morality. With regards to the former, Green has mused, the right of the parents to oversee the development of children is a long-established principle. Who is to dictate that parents may not try to raise their children in a manner that maximizes the possibility of a heterosexual outcome? If that prerogative is denied, should parents also be denied the right to raise their children as atheists or as priests until it has been shown that any form of treatment has any effect on a child's future sexual orientation, Green's point is moot.
In 1973, Robert Spitzer was largely responsible for removing homosexuality as a diagnosis from the DSM-3. No longer was it recognized as a sexual deviation and disorder on par with pedophilia and transvesticism.
Also, I have an additional point for the conversion therapy point. If conversion therapy is so bad for sexuality, does that mean pedophiles shouldn't undergo treatment for it? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, and you would hope it works in the case
which
of
probably
pedophiles,
helped
right?
gays
So-
to be accepted in wider society. So you could call Spitzer pro-homo, I guess. In 2001, Robert Spitzer published a paper called Can Some Gay Men and Lesbians Change Their Sexual Orientation? Which, of course, was a retaliation on the idea that there was no scientific evidence to support conversion therapy, which Zucker complains about. This'll show him, Spitzer thought. Gay men don't have it easy, they just need to accept their maleness, and then their unwanted male attractions will decrease, he argued. He never stopped to think why it might be unwanted. Who could hope to change the world, I guess? The paper, of course, is like really bad. Kind of in the same way that the RGD paper is bad. There was an immediate backlash to it as well. Even the American Psychology Association issued a critique, because no matter how bad it is, it was still going to be used to justify conversion therapy. And of course, that's what happened. The ex-gay movement sprang on it like a rabbit in heat. But Zucker, having just taken over the journal Archives of Sexual Behavior, well, he kinda thought that Spitzer's paper fucked. So in 2003, Spitzer...
Cool. We did it. We did it. We are fantastic. Look at that. 69, nice. 88, nice. Okay, we had like a pretty even spread. I kind of enjoy that. Like we scored at 30 minutes, scored at 69 minutes, scored at 88 minutes. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Right. So we'll go now because, well, I'm done with you. No, I'm just kidding. It's later than I would usually be not doing things. Does that make sense? Whatever, I don't know. All right. So I will see you all. Well, I'm trying to make some progress through this pretty quickly. So I think my plan is Sunday. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So tomorrow, 1, I should be getting a video up for the main channel. 2, I'll be live streaming on my religion channel. And then, sorry, I made it sound like I was going to say like 3 things. But, well, then on Saturday, my mum is singing in a Christmas Carol concert, so we're going to go and support her with that, and that'll be nice. And then that's like an evening thing, so whatever. In fact, I might actually stay at my parents' that night, because my parents are closer to my church, so just saves on driving, doesn't it? And then Sunday, I will be back doing this. So there we go, that's everything. All right, bye! So I just give it a while. If I click like stop streaming too quickly, then it will like cut off the end of my sentence.